We just opened it up to questions and answers for Coach Tim. We were just talking a little bit about his accident that he had, a recent bike crash. And, maybe we'll start there unless anybody else has any immediate questions.
Joanne, you're not supposed to be running while you're watching.
Good morning, Hillary. Are we on mute or are we all open?
No, we're all open. We're all
Everybody's
okay.
open. Bring them if you got them. And if you don't got them, then I'll just tell you guys stories.
I have a question. I'm still trying to form my question though. So if you're trying to balance like two forms of running that's going to be for the terrain you're going to be on, like for me that's trail for most of the year, and then the only time I'm doing road is for Ironman Canada. Mm-hmm. So I'll switch over just before then and switch to a little bit of hills, but mostly flat training. Mm-hmm. But before then, I just feel like I'm cycling through constant delayed onset muscle soreness. What do you do for that? Because I feel like I'm just a ball of soreness all the time. It's not injury. I mean, I went to my chiropractor. He's like, "You're great. You're golden." I'm like, "But why am I so sore?"
Because you're training a lot. I hate to break
I wanted to hear.
I hate to break it to you, but when you train like you do, and you train for long course, and you put in a lot of volume, like you're carrying fatigue, you're carrying inflammation, right? Your muscle breaks down and rebuilds, and so that's kind of where the soreness comes from, right? It's not like you're working muscles that you don't normally work, right? Because you've been training for a while and racing for a while. But it doesn't matter how long you do it, you still will battle fatigue, and you'll still battle inflammation. You'll still battle soreness. But the more volume we do and the older we get, the more we have to focus on recovery beyond just training. Nobody wants to have that blemish on their calendar where they didn't get their workout in or anything like that. Like, we're a bunch of type A crazy people. So you gotta check that box every day, or those 2 boxes, or those 3, whatever you got on your plan, you got to check the boxes. But ultimately, your body is the best indicator of how you're feeling. And your body will relay signals and tell you what is going on. It's the most efficient system that we have. So if you're sore and you're consistently sore for days on end and weeks, your body's telling you something. And maybe that 1 hour tempo run you're supposed to do should be a 40-minute recovery run, right? Like, because the more you start stacking that consistent soreness and fatigue, the more likely you are to get an overuse injury. So really just have to listen to your body. Yes, training while tired happens. Training while you're sore does happen, but it shouldn't be an everyday occurrence. There's definitely days that you're not on your A game. You did, like, I just did a fast set in the pool this morning. So like my shoulders and my lats and everything is sore. And I know when go to the gym tomorrow morning, like, I'm going to be sore and I'm not going to be able to put in the work I need to. And that's okay. Because it's an oddity. But if I'm doing that every day where I'm having that kind of feeling, eventually it's going to catch up with you and something's going to break down. So it's a balancing act of what's too much, what you can manage. Do you, just as a general question, when you're training, are you doing, say, 2 weeks of building and intensity and then a recovery week, or 3 weeks and a recovery week? Or like, do you have any kind of a template like that you're using?
Yeah. So I've worked it out that about every 10 days, I need some kind of recovery day that's really light. So that was my yesterday, just because I came off of a hard weekend of 4 hours of biking and 3 hours that ended up being a lot longer of running. Or no, this week it was a little less. And then followed it up on its heels with an hour endurance swim plus then an 11-mile hike up a mountain that ended up having a snowstorm up top. So it was like basically trudging through Mount Everest for the last 45 minutes to the top and an hour down because the descent was just so tricky. And I came off of that yesterday thinking, okay, I'll take this rest day. And then I woke up this morning, I'm like, I can't move my legs. And I noticed my workout is, a run. So it is going to be an easier run. It's supposed to be a tempo run. I'm not sure I'm going to get all the pushes that I want into the faster zones. It just may not happen because my legs are still crying. But I'm just wondering what kind of recovery activities should I have done yesterday when I just felt like I could not move and I was just doing really easy walking just to keep everything limber.
So the first thing I would say is a recovery day roughly every 10 days is not recovery. So just to give you an example, like I'm a more durable athlete. I'm able to put in a fair amount of volume and a lot of effort before I break down. Not exactly sure why that is. Some people are more durable than others. It happens. My training cycles are 3 weeks long. So I put in 3 weeks of training, and in those 3 weeks, I still have easy days. Like Monday, I did a recovery swim. It was 2K, and then I did a 45-minute, very easy recovery ride. So that was a very soft, that was a recovery day. And I have that built in. I have something similar to that built in every week of my training. But I get through 3 weeks and then I take a full-blown recovery week where my volume drops substantially, 70% been doing volume-wise. The efforts are all very easy overall. Like I might go for a recovery ride and put, 5 by 3 minutes where I spin up to like a rate, like a race intensity, very short intervals, which are just kind of to fire the muscles and flush, move blood and whatnot. But it's a full-fledged recovery week. And then I go into another 3-week cycle. And I am 35. I am not injury prone. I've been doing this a long time. And you need recovery weeks, not recovery day.
Yeah, I'm in a different phase of training, I think, because we're trying to balance two things. So I will be getting my recovery week, but that will come after I return back from a training camp. So that's coming up. The training camp is March 21st through 29th. Right. So I'll have the week before will be a little bit less. I'll notice it because I'll arrive rested.
And when was your last recovery week?
I don't know. Maybe it was in January.
Now we're talking. Now you know why you're sore. It doesn't matter if I'm in off-season mode. It doesn't matter if I'm in endurance phase. It doesn't matter if I'm in overload or strength building or whatever. Pushing yourself to, you're talking about an 8-week training cycle with no recovery week in there. And that, I don't know anyone who does that successfully. The people who train like that and don't take recovery weeks, even if they're not injured, they're all at a plateau. They're constantly fatigued. They're not improving, but they're just, I got to keep rolling. I got to keep rolling. Your body needs to rest. And there may be something that obviously I haven't seen your training plan. I don't have any, we don't have
there's
experience, so I don't know what's in the background with you. But if
there are some unique features.
Coaching, and if you came to me about coaching and you told me that would be a huge red flag for me as a coach.
Yeah, I do recognize that I'm dealing with some features that other people don't. Like we use the exercise to keep my autoimmune disease at bay.
Right.
So it's long, slow. It's very not intense.
Well, it shouldn't be, as a rule, even if you are healthy. I mean, unless you're a short course world champion type athlete. I mean, even the average person, even me, who's, you know, people might say that I'm fast or whatever. I'm never a pro level athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but most of my training is done, you know, below Ironman bike effort, below marathon effort. You know, most of my training is still done there, even as someone who's young and healthy and fairly quick. So that's good that you're training down there. And it's okay to be active. Even when I have rest days, I might take a day, or a rest week, recovery week. I might have a day off, or a day where I'm just doing yoga or flexibility, but I'm still active and moving every day. It's just, what are you doing and how are you, you know, I might go hiking, I might go play basketball, or, you know, something like that. And the durations are significantly smaller. The volume is significantly lower.
Before we move on to someone else, can I ask one more question that I think will be helpful for everybody else to hear?
Sure.
So some of you know I live right now 5 miles away from the epicenter of the US outbreak of COVID-19. So it broke out 5 miles from where I live. We are now in a state of emergency, local emergency, where our state already declared an emergency. A lot of my friends are working from home. A lot of my friends are asking questions about whether or not they should go work out. And I've been saying, as a community health nurse, yes, work out outside, fine, no worries about that. But they're all asking about, can they work out at home, and what should they be doing if they don't have a home gym? And I was wondering, for you as a coach, do you have any recommendations? If you don't have a home gym and you're not exactly going to go out somewhere and go buy a bunch of stuff right now, most of us are avoiding stores. Our town's starting to look like a ghost town. The streets are empty of cars. Like, people are trying to stay home.
Yeah.
And so what would you recommend for body kinds of activities and things that you could do inside your house?
So if you're talking about say strength training, for example, 85% of the population has all the weight they need just in body weight, right? You can do, you know, there's the obvious things if you're just trying to get the blood flowing, like you can do push-ups, you can do squats, you know, you can do curls with jugs of milk, you know, you can do what they're called chair dips, where you take 2 dining room chairs and put them side by side, and you can get in between them, and you can do dips between your chairs. If you want to do something that's more explosive, you can do jump squats, or you can do squats where you add an explosive leg up. So, you know, you like drive a knee up type of a thing. You can do lunges, right? Without weight, with, you know, milk or water, or you can do, if you have a decent core, you can do what's jump lunges, where you're hopping back and forth between each leg. If you're trying to do something from, say, a running standpoint, well, you have all the strength training you want in stairs if you have stairs, right? Like, there was that dude in China that was very extreme that ran that 50K in his apartment, right? And he just ran back and forth like a crazy person down the hallway of his apartment. I probably would have kept going and jumped out the window at some point, but, you know, he was able to do that. But you could do something where you do some calisthenics to get loose and then run your stairs hard. It's like doing a shorter version of hill repeats, right? So you can get some strength work in that way. It's all about how creative you want to get, right? And say you're not very good at push-ups, but you want to do strength training. You can lean against a wall and do a push-up, or hold on the edge of your table and do a push-up, and it offloads some of the weight. If you're really strong doing push-ups, you can go the other way and elevate your feet. You know, you can put them up on your ottoman or up on your chair, or if you're one of them crazy, super strong CrossFit people, you can do them with your feet up on the wall. You know, there's different ways. You can do wall sits, which are great for muscular endurance in the quads and whatnot, where you just sit back up against a wall at a 90-degree angle, like you have a chair under you, and you can hold that for 60 seconds and do multiple sets or something like that. There is a ton that can be done in there. And I hope Joanne is making us all tea.
Yes.
Watching her. So there's a lot there's a lot you can do in your house.
I think that this is a good question actually about this virus, because I think we're all really nervous about it. And I mean, I have a triathlon coming up in a month in Florida, in Tampa, which is where there's 3 cases. I mean, what are people doing? Are you guys canceling, or are you just going to go forward? I mean, I'm really debating on whether or not to back out of this altogether.
I mean, some of them are. There's been ITU races canceled. There's been cycling events canceled. There's been
Xterra canceled a race. Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be a lot more as we go forward.
There's a concern there may not be an Olympics this year, right? They by rule they have to make a determination 3 months out. So by like the end of April, they have to decide whether or not they're going to even have the Olympics. Mm-hmm. There's Tokyo Marathon, right? They only did elites and wheelchair and push rim athletes. I had a client that it was canceled 2 days before he was to get on a plane and go to Tokyo, to run that's his next to last world major he has to run. And
it's really scary.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
we're all
they're
we're all at the
deciding
mercy
whether or not to close their port. So if they do, I might get stuck there. Who knows? Be stuck in paradise.
Right. It's tough way to go.
Yeah.
So
fortunately, I got out of Florida right before the outbreak. I was in camp in Claremont, which is an hour from Tampa.
Yes.
I came home 2 weekends ago, and then now
I'm supposed to go back there next week, and I'm really considering canceling it again. It's like I've got so many things that I'm going to cancel. It's
right.
Like, what do? Do you go on with your life, or do you stop?
I mean,
and protect yourself temporarily.
So
it's difficult.
So let's take it with a bit of a grain of salt, right? But this is it's a strand of influenza, right? It's a version of the flu. So like in Washington, where you are, right? Like the biggest issue that they've had is like they had that nursing home, the nursing home community was hit very hard. The first guy was a mid-50s guy with underlying health conditions, things like that. It can hit healthy people, obviously, but it's less likely to affect.
Yeah, there was a 20-year-old who died this weekend.
And so it's like, obviously they're talking about it. It's a big thing because it's spreading around the globe very quickly. Because of how easy it is to travel nowadays, right? They used to have epidemics that wiped out cultures, but nobody ever met each other. Now everybody travels, so things go around the world quickly. But common sense goes a long way. Obviously, you guys are sheltered in place practically up in the Northwest, so you're just kind of waiting out the storm more or less. But like in Hillary's case, I would still go to Florida unless they made a call and said that they were canceling the event, beforehand. But, you have to do what you're comfortable with. But, it's all going to come down to your comfort level and whether or not you feel you're doing the things that you need to do. There's the jokes about stores are out of hand soap, and well, why haven't people been buying it before the outbreak? Why weren't you washing your hands beforehand? Why is it now? So as long as you're right. So it's it's all about your comfort level. But if I was in your position, I would still go as long as the race was on. Obviously.
Yeah, my background's in community health as a nurse. I studied infectious diseases for fun. And I would say, again, I back you up on that, Tim, that unless they cancel it and tell you it's not happening, you should go ahead and go. just don't dawdle in social places. Don't spend a lot of time where everybody's congregated. Eat in your hotel room. Don't hang around places long.
And that's a great thing.
I think it's more the plane than anything else, because you're in such a tight quarter.
Right.
So
and
I would go along with that and say, along with the plane, is I would say post race, right? Because everybody's congregated at the post race activity, but you've also just finished, so you have a depressed immune system, right? Mm-hmm. So you're already going to be vulnerable. So I would skip any kind of post race party, or I wouldn't hang around and stick my hand in the bin of 10,000 bananas. Everybody else, that kind of stuff. Yeah, just kind of common sense stuff. But I wouldn't be concerned about going.
I mean, Hillary, welcome to my world. This is what I do normally, because my immune system is depressed because I have two autoimmune diseases and so many allergies. I'm out of there. The minute my race is over, I grab my stuff. I'm gone. I don't take anything from there. I don't say goodbye to anyone. I just leave. And then if I flew there, I wear a mask, and I've been wearing masks for years, but that's something I've had to do to protect myself from people's peanuts, from people's fragrances, from their smoke on their clothes, everything, because I'm so sensitive. And so, I mean, if you feel comfortable and you want to do that, if you've got your own N95 mask, just because your system is very sensitive, feel free to do that. I know what they're saying to the general public is it's not helpful. I've been wearing masks for years to keep myself from getting everybody else's crap. Their colds, their flus, whatever. And it's really been helpful for me. And what it does is it also just helps you to not touch your face. You just don't touch your face. If you got a mask on, you're not going to touch your nose and your mouth. It's a nice, simple barrier.
It's amazing how many times a day you touch your face.
And that's one of the things they're talking about, is they're like, well, it only lives on the skin for 10 or 15 minutes or whatever they're saying, but they're like, but how many times do you, without unconsciously, touch your face?
Rub your eye, or
so you got something in the right, and you got mucous membranes and soft tissue, and then it's a whole journey from there.
Very scary. All right, let's keep going. So you guys, anybody else have any questions? Joanne, Steve?
Well, Ray wrote one in, and when we were talking about the recovery, and he asked about rest days. So rest days are dependent kind of on the person. Like I'm assuming he's talking week to week, like weekly rest days. I personally don't like rest days for me, but that's more because I'm a rhythm and flow kind of guy. So I like to maintain my rhythm day to day. So, I get up, I get on the computer, I check everybody's workouts from the night before, whatever, and then I go get a workout in. So that may mean, like I said, I'm going to go, I go do a recovery swim, or I go play basketball, or I just go walk around the park or the local lake or something. But I like to keep that rhythm going, so I prefer not to take them. I do take them leading up to a big race, usually a few days out. So if it was like a Saturday race, I would take like Thursday off, kind of a thing. But for the most part, I don't. Most of my clients do have a rest day in their week, and that's, they got their job, they got their families, they got, everything else that's going on. And so they need a day where they're not trying to cram everything in. It's usually, for most people, Monday or Friday tends to be the best, because if it's Monday, well, you just did your weekend, which is most people's biggest training time. So Monday's a good day to recover, or Friday, because you get to catch your breath before your big weekend. But there's nothing wrong with them at all. It's more of a personal preference, as long as you're taking your easy days, your normal easy days as easily as possible. Then it's just kind of, do you need that day where you get to turn your brain off and not think about training, or the kids have 10 different activities because they got band and drama and sports, and so I just don't have time, so that day tends to work, or whatever.
But don't you think, Tim, that as you get older, you should take at least one day?
It depends on the person, and it depends on durability. Like I said, most of my clients do have rest days. Maybe 20-25% of them don't. And most of them are in their 40s or 50s. You know, that general age of triathlon, 30s to 60s is, you know, the big numbers. So most of them do. It's really, like I said, for me, not taking one is better. It's better mentally for me. But like I said, even though I'm active, I'm not training that day. You know, I'm going for a walk. I'm going to play golf. You know, so I'm still outside. I'm still being active. I'm doing whatever. But I'm not, you know, I'm not in the pain cave banging away on the pedals. Or if I'm at the pool, I'm doing 1,500 and just kind of chilling out. And, you know, and it's more because I feel guilty if I walk past the pool to get to the hot tub. I'm like, well, I have to actually get in the pool before I get in the hot tub, you know, kind of a thing. So, but yes, the older you get, the more recovery becomes critical and the more you have to listen to your body. And even if you don't schedule off days, you know, or rest days where you're not doing anything, you still have to listen to your body. And like I said, maybe that you wake up and you've been dragging yourself out of bed for 4 days and you're feeling run down. It's in your best interest to take that day off instead of continuing to load on top of it. You know, so the first thing I always tell my clients is, above all else, no matter what the schedule says, is you have to listen to your body, because your body knows you better than anyone else. You know, so.
Other questions?
Yeah, hi, I have a question. This is Steve Girardi. How are you? You may have touched on this on other blogs. Starting up our season, so to speak, in the Northeast. I'm particularly concerned about how best to balance hydration and supplements, particularly on long runs and or races, you know, at the half marathon level and beyond. I know there are 100 different ideas about how well to do this, but it became more uniquely interesting to me last year because I had a marathon experience where, for the first time ever, I literally seized up in the final miles of the race, beyond 20 miles. Never happened to me before. It was completely uncontrollable, and I suffered really for the first time ever. And I wondered whether or not I was really lacking, you know, in essential nutrients in my hydration plan. And that's an area where I really want to kind of give some focus, because I'm concerned that, you know, that could happen again.
So
I wonder what you thought about that.
Sorry. So there's 3 reasons for you to seize up like that. Okay. The first one is you didn't train adequately. So if you've run marathons in the past and you haven't had these issues before, and you followed the same basic template and you weren't, you know, hamstringed by injury or anything, you were able to get your volume in, things like that, then that most likely is not the case. The second one is that you went out too hard, which again, if you have a history of doing these races and you haven't had these issues and you followed the same basic strategy, also probably not the case. The third one is your hydration and nutrition relative to your environment. So the best thing anybody can do for learning your fueling is to get tested, to do, you know, you can do it as basic as, like, I do sweat tests for all my athletes. It's very easy to do. And then I can provide a fueling plan off of that. If you want to get really deep into how to break down the macros of everything and get you that last, say, like 1%, then you want to go get like, blood tests done and things like that, where you go to like a sports lab and they'll do it. But there's a couple things to unpack from a hydration and nutrition standpoint. Is number one is we have to take in calories, right? But our body is limited in how many calories it can process. The average person can only process between 250 and 350 calories an hour. So if you're taking in more than that, A, it's wasted, but B, then you also tend to be more likely to have like stomach distress, right? So you have to get calories in an efficient manner, but you don't want to take in too many calories. As far as hydration goes, everyone is a little different in how much they need. Like I'm on the heavier side of the spectrum in terms of fluids in. Like when it's hot, like if I'm racing and it's above 80 degrees, I'm taking in almost 2 bottles an hour. So I'm taking in almost 40 ounces an hour, which is on the higher side, but that's what I personally need. As the temperature goes down, the less I need to take in. And that works across the scale to anyone. It scales up and down. And then, so sweat tests would help with figuring out both of those, or the blood tests. Either one would help with both of those. The third one, which is the one that's a little harder to figure out and requires a little trial and error, is the nutrients that are within your fuel. So the ones that that prevent cramping the most is obviously, right, everybody knows potassium, right? Because they tell you to take eat a banana when you're cramping, right? Magnesium, calcium, all of these things contribute to allowing your muscles to function properly. And so when they are starved or depleted of those, that's most typically when we tend to cramp up. It's either fatigue or the muscles are starved. So what you need to find is the most efficient way to get those in. Some people can eat when they train and race. I can't. So all of my stuff it's a mixture that I mix in with water. And so every time I'm taking a shot of water, I'm getting my calories. And so I know if I get through a bottle and, my bottle of my mix an hour, I'm getting 320 calories an hour, which is what I personally need. And it has the sodium I need, the potassium I need, the magnesium I need, etc. A lot of people do gels and goos. Gels and goos are fine if you can, if you have a stomach that can tolerate them, and most people do. The problem is they are usually not enough. So you still need to supplement somewhere, or you have to take a lot of them. And then at that point, then nobody likes gels, right? And everybody's stomach gets wrecked. Same with sports drinks, like, your Gatorade, Endurance, your Powerades, whatever. Most people can tolerate them, and that's fine. But again, if you were to look at the contents of them, it's nowhere near enough. So you still have to supplement somewhere. You need to add to it. So the first thing I would recommend is, if you have access to it locally, it's great. Or, I offer to, obviously I'll help anybody who needs it, is to get a test done. It's very, like I said, it's very simple to do, because then it gives you a starting point and a template on where to build from. And as far as your race goes, as to why it happened this time, you should compare the environmental factors of the past. If you have past ones, was it hotter that day than your other races? Was it more humid that day? Did you come in, like I said, was your training on point like it had been in the past? And look at what the variables are, and that may go a long way in determining it without having to do a whole lot of additional work on your end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think you hit on a lot of the factors. Yes, I was a little bit undertrained. Yes, I did go out a little bit too fast. But I've done this in a number of other races and never had quite the outcome that I did in this particular case. And that's why I was wondering if if the amount of nutrients that I had wasn't a factor on top of that. I
Certainly could be.
Yeah, I could have run a little smarter race. I got a little out of my comfort zone, but.
Well, and so you get a couple things that happen, right? Even when we come in under trained. So the tagline in my email is we fall to the level of our training. We don't, rise to the level of our belief, right? Mm-hmm. That's not it verbatim, but that's basically the general idea. No matter whether if I set my goal, I say I want to go out and run a 3:15 marathon. Well, life, training, injury, whatever, I might only prepare for a 4-hour marathon. But when the gun goes off, I'm pacing for 3:15 because that's just kind of what we do a lot of times. And then the wheels come off. The longer the race gets, marathoning and, especially marathoning and up, and then like in triathlon from half marathon and exponentially so to Ironman, the more something is wrong, every little thing that's wrong tends to show itself. And if more than one thing is wrong, then they tend to compound on each other, right? So if you're not well trained for a 10K and you go out a little hard, you may suffer, you may blow up, right? And you may run 3 or 4 minutes slower than you thought you were gonna, but you still kind of fall relatively in that same general ballpark. In a marathon, if something's wrong and you go out a little too hard, you feel great through 8 and 10 and 12. And then at 16, you go, oh, I feel a little tired. And then at 20, you go, oh, hell no, I got to walk the last 10K. And so instead of running 10 or 15 seconds a mile slower through the entirety of the race, had you scaled back, you're now going, 5 to 10 minutes slower per mile. And then all of a sudden everything escalates and the times, you fall apart.
So you were there.
Many times I've been there. That's actually one of the jokes amongst like my close friends is as much as I've run, like I've paced friends for, I've run 50K, I've paced friends for 50K of 50 milers and done all this stuff. I've never actually run under 4 hours in a marathon. And I hate the marathon. I very rarely run them. Like the last time I ran one was 2013. Like I just don't like them. But I mean, I've run like 3:15, 3:18, 3:20, like in training with friends. And then the few times I've actually went out and raced a marathon, I've either went out too fast or it was hot. Like one of them, it was really hot and I wasn't taking the additional hydration and fueling that I needed. One of them, I went in with a foot injury and decided I was going to push it no matter what. And at 21, everything exploded, in my results, my fastest marathon's 4:03, but I've run 50K in 4:30 on trail. So it's like, the marathon is my personal nemesis and I hate it with a passion. So yes, I've been there.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir. And if you want to talk more about fueling and the options that you have, feel free to shoot me a message and we can talk about it more, without taking up everybody else's time. I'll dig through it all with you and help you kind of figure it out.
Cool, thank you.
Anybody else have questions?
Does the kitty cat have a question?
Who's that?
All right.
That's it? Man, you guys make stuff easy.
So, I think that's a wrap. If nobody else has any questions, I think.
Well, yeah. I want to take a couple minutes and I want to address safety.
Okay.
So Hillary and I were talking about this before. You guys are triathletes, you're runners, you spend time out on the roads, or in the woods or, outside of your home doing training and racing. And the one thing most people tend to take for granted because we're too worried about training is safety. and being safe. And that covers, the gambit of making sure somebody knows where you're going, if you're going somewhere training alone, all the way up to being aware of your surroundings, to the equipment that you're using. And so, like I was telling her, like I'm a prime example. I've been doing this a long time. I've had a lot of incidents and accidents and things that have happened because the longer you do this stuff, the more likely it is to happen. So the last weekend of January, we had decent weather here. It was like around 40 degrees and the sun was out and the wind was pretty mild. So, it felt like it was in like the mid 30s. And so I was tired of being holed up in my house. And so I wanted to get my ride in outside. And I used it also as a commute to go visit some family. And I keep my equipment in top shape. I don't skimp on the equipment that I use because I've been doing this forever. And I run activity tracking, so when I leave, and if you don't know this, Garmin actually does activity tracking for free. As long as you have a Garmin device, you go into Garmin Connect on your phone and there's one that says tracking and there's another one that says incident detection. And so in there you type in some emails, or so you can put in somebody's Facebook profile, whatever. And when you go out and you start your device, it will send that person an email or Facebook message or whatever, and they can see your GPS file. So they can see where you're going as you're going, and they can see how many miles in you are, how fast you're going, et cetera, et cetera. So, I've been using that for a long time because I do most of my training alone. So I was at the tail end of a ride. I was about 2 hours into a ride and I had an accident. I'm not entirely sure what happened because I landed on my head and didn't knock myself out, but I have about 6 hour time frame where I don't remember anything. And that includes almost the entirety of the ride. It includes the accident. It includes going to the hospital afterwards. I didn't lose consciousness. I jumped right up. I sent a text message to the people on my activity tracking because they got an incident detection alert that something happened, because your computer or watch, they have accelerometers in them. And that's how it measures like your laps in the pool or things like that. And so when there's a sudden stop, or that's what triggers it. So I said, hey, I had an accident. I bumped my head, but I'm good. I was almost to where I was trying to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that. And then I guess I realized while it was going on that I was starting to get a little forgetful and things were starting to get hazy. So I said, hey, I think I need to go to the hospital. I think I have a concussion. I went to the hospital, had CT scans, x-rays done of my shoulder, blah, 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 all this stuff. I don't remember having any of it done, and they diagnosed me with a TBI, because that's, I passed all the cognitive tests, balance tests, everything, but I was asking the same questions over and over again. I didn't remember being examined, so, but the fact of the matter is, because I had the proper safety equipment, I was saved from it being much worse. So obviously everybody thinks about wearing a helmet, but I want you all in the future to consider the helmets that you're wearing. I don't care what brand you wear, but the best thing you can do is a helmet that has MIPS technology, which is MIPS. MIPS, there'll be a little yellow sticker on the side of the helmet, and it'll be a big yellow sticker on the box. The helmets that have that do not cost anything additional, or if they do, it is super cheap. I mean, it's maybe $5 more. If you're spending a couple $100 on a helmet, what's another couple bucks? But basically what it does is it simulates your skull. Your brain, there's a little bit of space between your brain and the skull. And the idea is, your brain floats inside of your head. So concussions and TBIs happen when your brain hits the side of your skull. right? When there's or a whiplash situation, whatever. So the way a MIPS helmet works is it works the exact same way. Your head is actually in the carriage and it floats inside of the helmet. So it will allow the helmet to absorb the impact and deflect it before the foam is even triggered and then hits your head. So my helmet being a MIPS helmet, the outside of the helmet just had a couple little scuffs on it. But if you flip the helmet over, the foam was cracked all the way through in 3 places.
Wow.
But had I been wearing a cheaper helmet or a helmet without MIPS technology, that's when you tend to see helmets that are cracked all the way open and things like that because there's nothing to absorb or deflect the impact. The other piece that goes with that is your helmet needs to be properly tightened and fastened. Most people wear their helmets way too loose. If your helmet strap is proper, you should feel it under your chin. And if you open your mouth, if you open your mouth wide like that, you should be able to feel a little bit of pressure from the helmet on the top of your head. It shouldn't be uncomfortable, but it should be snug, right? You see, most of us know everybody, they got that one that dangles out here, right? It's really low. They could take it and go like they're at Buckingham Palace and tuck it up on their chin if they wanted to. In the event of an accident, that's not going to do you any good. The helmet is going to move and it's not going to serve its purpose. So now, I'm 5 weeks post and, I look pretty good now. I got a nice little mark here, which is where the road rash from my face hitting the road is healing. And then this little bump here is actually where the line of my helmet was, where the main impact was from where the foam absorbed the impact. And that was like the size of a golf ball post-accident. But again, the fact remains, without something decent, I very well could not be here having this conversation with you guys now. So please, we spend thousands of dollars on bikes and we spend thousands of dollars a race, and then we spend hundreds of dollars on each kit that we buy, right? Don't buy a $50 helmet. Spend a couple $100, get a good quality helmet, get something that has MIPS technology, which is a nationally certified and oversought technology that's out there. It had to be approved by our government here in the US. So don't sell yourself short on that. Always run some kind of tracking. There's lots of free ones out there. If you don't want to use Garmin, Road ID has a free app, and that one sends things through text message instead of email. It works the exact same way. So we have a lot of options. Make sure you're using bike lights and make sure that they're charged. We're small profile on the road. If you've never been hit by a car, I can tell you it's not a lot of fun. And my accident was very minor. Somebody clipped me with a mirror. I didn't take a full on, impact from a car, but it's not a lot of fun. And we're so small on the road that anything we do that we can have to bring attention to ourselves is great. Don't wear dark clothes at dusk. Don't wear dark clothes at sunrise. A lot of it's common sense, but it will and can save your life. So, I'm not trying to sound preachy, but as someone who's been down the road plenty of times in the past and have enough scars, I would be much worse off if I wasn't using the right equipment and being intelligent in the way that I'm doing it. So, that is my PSA for the month. And if you have questions about helmet fit, so I'm a certified mountain bike instructor and ride guide. Part of our course was we had to go through a helmet fitting course so that when anyone comes to any of my clinics or anything like that, I can make sure that their helmets are fit and whatnot. Obviously you guys are remote to me, but we could easily jump on a video conference if you're unsure as far as, is my strap tight enough? Is my helmet placed correctly? What do you think about this brand of helmet, whatever? I would not hesitate in a moment to jump on a video call with anybody and go through that stuff. So, I don't have a lot up here left to scramble, being, I went to Baltimore City schools. I'm not the brightest one out there. A lot of you guys are very smart. Save your squash, and use the right stuff and use it properly.
Thank you,
Thank
Tim.
you.
That was great. That was really great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, without, thank you again, Tim. And,
Yeah.
thank you all for joining, and we're going to do this again every month. So stay tuned for next month. Get your questions ready, and Coach Tim will answer them.
You got it.
All right. Have a
Have a
good
good week, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.